Welcome to the Edinburgh International Book Festival. Congratulations on securing tickets to the second most exciting event the International Book Festival put on. You would have been the first, but we had Dervla Murphy on Monday.
Fair enough. And I missed that.
And you missed that.
I was really annoyed.
Was anybody in the audience for Dervla? Yeah, she was amazing, wasn't she? So you've not got much to live up to, Juliana.
That's fair.
So could we just check that everyone's phones are off? We really welcome you to tweet about the event, but if you could do that once the lights go up again for Q&A, that'd be brilliant. I'm your chair, Lee Craigie. I'm fortunate enough to have carved a career out of racing and adventuring by bike, and that has brought me into contact with all sorts of incredible women, and Juliana is one of them, and probably one of the most incredible. Juliana Buhring, not true? You'll have to work hard, I think, to convince these guys that's not true. Juliana Buhring is an ultra-endurance cyclist and writer. In December 2012, she set the first Guinness World Record as the fastest woman to circumnavigate the globe by bike, riding over 29,000 kilometres in a total of 152 days. Juliana was the only woman to participate in the inaugural transcontinental race from London to Istanbul in 2013, finishing in 9th place overall. And in 2014, she won the first edition of the Trans Am bike race, first woman, and finishing 4th overall, riding more than 7,000 kilometres in 20 days and 23 hours. She is now considered one of the strongest female endurance cyclists in the world. She's written 2 books, international bestseller Not Without My Sister, translated into 11 languages, which details her life growing up within religious cult, the Children of God. This Road I Ride is an account of her world cycle ride. Welcome, Juliana Buhring. So, in order to ride around the world,
Yes.
You must have been riding a bike since you were a tiny little kid, right?
Yeah, no.
No?
Not at all. No, I literally learned to ride a bike so I could cycle around the world, so I hadn't really ridden a bike. I think I did potter around the courtyard as a child. I remember around 6 years old in the Philippines being on a bike, but that was it.
Your kid, so you didn't ride a bike?
Never rode a bike.
How long before you set off to ride around the world?
Well, so I started to train to do the world cycle, and I think from the time I started learning to cycle to the time I left was more or less 8 months.
8 months?
Yeah. It was pretty fun, and it was in Naples, no less. So if anyone's been to Naples, it's chaotic. It was like what I say in the book. It was like a baby deer in a stampeding herd of buffalo. That's what it felt like. I was like, ah.
So you can survive Naples. You can survive
anywhere. You can survive India and Istanbul, which it was good training for that.
But you must have had some level of fitness. You must have done other sport when you were growing up, or something to be able to transfer into.
I'm really tall, so I did basketball when I was a kid. Okay. Well, a teenager. I just enjoyed basketball, but not as a sport, just for fun with friends. Okay. Well, that was about it. I had not done any proper sport for I think maybe 10 years at least. Not in my adult years anyway.
Okay. Yeah. But as a child, then, I mean, you had a different childhood to many other people that have gone on to do these acts of physical endeavour. Is that the case? Can you tell us a little bit about your childhood and how you grew up?
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I giggle because I had a very stunted childhood. I basically grew up in an extremist religious group, and my childhood was spent behind high walls, and I never really saw the outside world. And perhaps that's why I had this great desire for adventure and to see and do and experience as much as I could when I got out as a young adult. And I suppose that I still feel like I'm in that learning process and in discovering the world that I didn't get to discover as a child.
So you were actually behind walls?
Oh yeah, we had barbed wire on the top. It was like a prison. There's a big compound, and it was just, that's all we saw was our little gardens and. Wow. And we did go out into the outside world, but it was always under supervision and in very controlled situations. So
Wow.
we didn't have much contact with people outside.
But you had a very close contact inside, and a lot of those contacts you still have?
Yes, so a lot of the, well, we were children at the time, but a lot of my my peers who I knew as a child within these compounds who had also left as adults, they obviously are spread around the world. And so they really gathered behind my ride. They kind of saw me as representing all of them.
Oh, really?
And so, you know, they were helping me all along the way with donations. Because I started out, kind of left home with about 3,000 euros and quickly ran out of money somewhere along the way. I think it was in New Zealand. And so people were just following me on my mad adventure because they were like, this is kind of fun to watch somebody who doesn't know how to ride a bike try and cycle the world. And I didn't have a sponsor, I didn't have money really, I had just what I had saved up. And so they started sending me little donations. It was over 100 people would send me 10 euros, 20, 50 euros. And it just all added up, and then lots of people put me up along the way. Then, you know, would come and find me on the road and pay for my dinner, or, you know, or try and just like stick food on my bike. It's incredible to me how many people kind of rallied around my ride, and I could not have finished it without all of that support. And a lot of them were kids I had known in my childhood.
Yeah, I was going to ask how much of that was because of the network that you had growing up as a child, and how much of that is just because the sort of stuff that we do seems to attract a lot of interest, and people sort of want to hear about your story and take care of you almost as a solo woman travelling the world by bike. How much were...
Do you know, a lot of, most of the people that I would tell about what I was doing or before I left were all very... there was always the common line being, oh, you know, you're a woman alone cycling the world, it's dangerous, you can't do that. And I was actually puzzled myself as to why no woman had attempted it before me. So part of it was a bit of an experiment to find out why it seemed to be a male-dominated adventure sport. And I honestly still can't tell you why, because I feel more and more, and the more kind of adventures I go on alone as a woman, I feel that we're actually safer and we get more support than the men do, maybe because everyone thinks, ooh, a solitary woman, let's help her. And so there's just constantly people wanting to help and take care of, like you say, take care of you. So I did have a group of, I think we all reconnected on Facebook and chat groups and all the rest. So they heard about my cycle through that. So there was that kind of united online group support. But the majority of the people weren't from my childhood. They were just strangers. And I really discovered throughout my entire journey just how good humanity is, and just experienced firsthand the generosity and kindness and fundamental goodness of humans and strangers and people who didn't know me and didn't need to help. But, you know, people saved my life along the way, just random people. I could have been in really dangerous situations, and you know, they were there to help me just when I needed help. So
So people are good.
People are good most of the time. I mean, we all have a little bit of a bad side we can sometimes do. I think we all have a fundamental goodness in us, and I think that seeing people needing help kind of brings that out in people more.
Is it most people are good most of the time?
Yeah, that's it.
So you talked a bit about how travelling solo as a woman, you felt as though you almost benefited from that.
Yeah.
Are there other aspects to being a woman that lends itself to this sort of riding, this sort of long distance riding, in your opinion?
Yeah, I think, because since doing that ride, I figured out that I could go for long distances quite well and not tire out. And after the World Cycle, I got into endurance racing, and like you said, I started to do continental kind of long distance races. And I think that women are very well suited to ultra sports. Running as well, I think, is a similar. After a certain point, men and women become quite equal, and I think that has something to do with women being able to endure a lot of pain, maybe even better than men, and that's as much mental as physical. Perhaps because we have, I don't know, childbirth and all the rest. Our bodies accommodate pain better, but we also have more fat. So we can actually go longer without needing to eat. We burn slower, so we can probably survive better if we come to a situation where there's no food, which I have many times, and just can keep going anyway, and not drop dead on the side of the road.
That's always a good thing, isn't it, when you're racing?
It's useful.
Yeah, it's not a performance enhancer death.
No, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so we talked a little bit about diet just there. So a slightly high percentage of body fat is helpful. You have quite an unusual diet in order to help you achieve these.
Yeah, well I started out very normal diet and ate just absolute crap. And when you're on these kind of travels and races, you can't actually choose what you eat, because you're basically running into a service station and just pulling off what you find on the shelves. And you start to really crave vegetables and fruits after a certain point, or just cooked food. Yeah. But then I started to get into what is the best diet for long distance sport in general, but bicycling in particular. And I switched over to a ketogenic diet, so I don't eat refined carbohydrates, and I eat very high content of fat, but the good fats, so olive oil, pure butter.
You drink
coconut oil. I drink oil like a car. Yeah, I just guzzle oil.
Not like engine oil.
No, it's the good oil. It's like condensed coconut oil.
Oh, okay, that sounds okay.
And it, but it basically is the concept is that you consume this much food for this much energy it gives you, as opposed to needing to eat. When you have carbs, you have to constantly keep refueling carbs, otherwise you crash. And once you bonk, you're done. Your body can't recover very easily. So on a carb diet, you've got to regularly keep tanking up, and you have to eat like this much carb for this much energy. So it's the reverse.
Which is difficult when you don't have much space on your bike to carry loaves of bread.
So I can just take my little bottle of oil and I'm okay.
Got you. Okay. Oh, interesting. Yeah, I've never tried that myself. Maybe I should have a go.
But after a certain point, when you're burning like 12,000 calories a day, doesn't matter what you put in, it all just goes. It's like a furnace. It just burns.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Can we go back to the start of this ride and what is detailed in this book?
Yes.
So you weren't a bike rider. You decided that you were going to do this thing because why? I mean, why ride around the world?
Yeah. I couldn't tell you why I decided to cycle, because it was never anything that would have entered my brain up until that point. I never thought about getting on a bike. I never would have thought of taking it up as a sport either.
This is all good stuff in preparation for this.
But so I had just lost someone really, really dear to me, and went into a really dark place, and couldn't pull myself out of this depression I had fallen into, and I just wanted to escape. And I decided I'm just going to leave on the most random adventure. And during his funeral, a friend said, I would like to go. I suppose with death kind of brings what's important to you back into focus, and what is real and what isn't, or the fluff of life becomes less relevant. And she was saying, well, what are the things you would want to do before, if you were to die tomorrow, can you say that you've done everything you want to do? And she said, well, I would like to go and cycle across Canada. And she was like, would you like to come? And I was like, I don't know, maybe I'll think about it, like cycle Canada. Well, who does that? I was like, okay. But then I started to research, well, if I was going to go cycle somewhere, where would I want to cycle? And I started to research like potential cycle journeys, and then came across Scotland's Mark Beaumont, and other men who had cycled around the world. And I was like, ooh, cycle around the world. And I'm a bit of an extremist, so if I start...
Really?
If you go all the way, okay? Don't do it halfway. So I was like, well, obviously, if you're going to do a long-distance cycle, it should be the world. And then realized very quickly that there had never been a woman who had done it. And I was like, but there had been women who had gone on bicycle adventures and on, extensive, like Deborah Murphy, on continental journeys and all the rest. But there seemed to not have ever been a complete recorded circumnavigation non-stop. And so I was like, well, why is that? And I guess that sort of got me on that track. And then from then on, I just couldn't get it out of my head. I was like, I have to do it. And so then I got myself a cheap little, I think, €300 bike. It might have even been from
Decathlon?
Yes.
Was
I
it?
think it was. and started training on that and just started riding every day, adding mileage every day, a little more, until I could easily do 200 kilometers a day. And then once I got to that point, I was like, time to go. Yeah, and that was it.
I've got my oil.
I got my at that point I didn't have oil.
Okay.
Then it was just I was stopping every 30 kilometers and having to eat like big panini and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But yeah, the oil came later.
That was later.
Upgrade.
Developed into that. So you planned a route?
So I planned the basic route, and then I had to change plans because I had been trying to find a sponsor to help with some of the costs. Or I did get a bike sponsored, but that was very last minute, and it was really the wrong bike. I had no idea.
What was the bike?
It was a locally made brand, but it was a very lightweight carbon frame. The bike was too small for me. The wheels were really small, and I looked a bit like big and hunched over on it, and every single part was wrong and broke over the course of the world cycle. And I think by the end there wasn't a single part left from the original. It was just the frame.
How are your bike mechanics skills?
Still not very good, but they improve year by year. I really did wing it, and I learned a lot just going and doing it. So now if I did it again, I would be completely change everything that I am. But sometimes what you don't know won't hurt you until it does.
Until it does. Okay, so you've had 8 months training. You've got a bike.
Got a bike.
You've got a bike. Good.
Yeah, I had 3,000 euros.
Perfect.
And so I had delayed because there was a few promises of potential sponsors, and they just never came through and never realized. And then I thought, well, if I don't leave now, I'm never going to leave. And so I thought, if I leave, perhaps they'll realize that I'm very serious about this, and they'll kind of pick me up along the way.
Okay.
But thinking in hindsight, somebody comes up to you off the street who's never cycled before and go, I want to cycle the world, and would you sponsor me? You'd kind of be like, it would be something why would you invest in a lost cause? So obviously it was very difficult to get a sponsor. And so then I ended up needing to change direction. So I was going to go east to west, which was west to east, which is the usual direction, which is where the winds generally blow better that way. And then I delayed so long that I would have hit monsoon in Asia. So it was kind of a choice between monsoon or headwinds.
And you chose headwinds.
Yeah, I went into the wind.
Was that the right choice?
You know what? There is no wrong or right choice. There just is what you decide to do, and that's right.
Yeah.
So
I guess there's no point in changing your mind halfway round.
No. Never look back.
Great. Well, we'd quite like to hear a little reading from your book, if you were up for that.
Sure.
This Road I Ride, published by...
It's published by Piactus, I believe.
Great.
Yes.
Take it away.
I forgot. I hope they're not watching this. Do you want a long or a short?
Give us the prologue to start with.
Give you the prologue. Okay, here we are. Prologue. All right. This is the 22nd of December 2012, which is the day that I returned to Naples. So I started in Naples and I finished in Naples. A noisy crowd of cyclists and motorcyclists have gathered outside the bar in the small town of Cardito, on the periphery of Naples. Everybody wants to take pictures, but what I really want is a good espresso. There are groups of cyclists waiting to meet you along the way, Antonio says into my ear, checking his watch as I knock back a shot of rich, fragrant coffee at the bar. It is a typical Neapolitan bar selling warm cornetti, lottery tickets, and cigarettes, with harsh fluorescent lighting and a small flat-screen TV airing a football match. I could not be happier. How I have missed a decent Neapolitan espresso over the last 5 months. People will try and stop you to take pictures, but you've just got to go. There's no time. Remember, it's important you don't stop. Midday, you must be in Piazza Plebiscito. As my logistics manager, Antonio has absorbed most of the stress of my 18,000-mile around-the-world cycle. He has not had a good night's sleep since the start of the endeavor and looks to have matched my own weight loss kilo for kilo. His curly black hair is unbrushed, and his tired eyes, often squinting as though deep in thought, are hidden behind dark Ray-Bans. He had little idea what he was signing up for when he agreed to manage the logistics for my journey just over a year ago. Then again, neither did I. The finish line cannot come soon enough for both of us. Okay, I'm ready. Where's Pegasus? I haven't seen my bike since Antonio took it off to the garage for safekeeping yesterday. His younger brother Ricardo wheels it over, filthy from yesterday's rain, dry mud crusted along the white carbon frame. The leather seat is torn in places. There are dents and scratches on the paint, but considering the mileage it has done, Pegasus is in fairly good condition. For all the breakdowns and problems, it has got me around the world. I stroke the handlebars lovingly. This bicycle has been my companion on the road for 152 days. I've talked to it a lot. One last ride, Pegasus, I mumble now. The waiting cyclists mount their bikes. The motorcyclists rev their engines to I Will Survive, blasting from a speaker strapped to one of the pillions. Antonio jumps into his blue Renault Clio just ahead of us. People are whistling and clapping from the street, the apartment windows and the balconies, shouting, "Bye, Julie!" Eager to escape from all the noise and attention, I clip onto the pedals and push off. Our procession grows along the last 60 kilometers into Naples. Cyclists from Schiano, the company that donated my bike, join us. We head towards the bike shop, Cicli Caputo, where I first learned how to change a tube and disassemble Pegasus. The shop cyclists, whom I had joined on training rides just 8 months ago, are waiting for us there. We are now over 50 strong, teenage boys and older seasoned cyclists, amateurs and professionals, all accompanying me to the finish line. The police are on the streets to hold back the traffic as we pass. The motorcade blowing musical horns blocks cars at the junctions so we never have to stop. The atmosphere is jovial. The sun breaks through the clouds as we crest Pozzuoli, where ruins of the former Roman port city mingle with modern apartment complexes. The ocean below is silver gray, the city of Naples a colorful tangle of buildings under the shadow of Vesuvius. I laugh with euphoria and shout to the guys pedaling next to me, "What a beautiful day to ride!" They nod and give me the thumbs up. More cyclists are waiting for us further along the road, casual biking commuters and several women from the green cycle community. The pace slows to accommodate everyone as our ranks continue to swell. The last kilometers leading to Piazza Plebiscito follow the new bicycle path along the waterfront and into the city center. The entourage disperses into the waiting crowd of friends and online followers as I pedal across the cobbled square and over the finish line. A Neapolitan flag is thrown around my shoulders. People are clapping and shouting, "Brava!" A makeshift stage has been set up and someone is standing on it shouting into a microphone, "Juliana is back!" Antonio is waiting for me as I climb off my bike and I give him a giant hug. "Brava, baby," he says, pinching my cheek affectionately as he often does. We did it. It is his victory as much as mine. I may have done the pedaling, but he has done everything to ensure I could. I'm led onto the stage with Pegasus and a microphone is thrust in front of my face. They obviously want me to say something, but my mind is blank. It all feels so surreal. I have made it around the world, and I can't believe that it is really over. I can feel the bruised, shredded skin on my thigh from yesterday's fall. My toes are black and blistered with frostbite. My face is raw from sun and windburn. My body is near collapse. But in this moment, standing at the finish line with the crowd clapping and cheering, the difficulties, the sickness, the exhaustion, the cold, the hunger, the pain, and the tears all seem like a dream that never really happened. Yet it did happen, against everyone's expectations, without a sponsor or any funding, without a technical and medical support team, with only 8 months of training on a bicycle. Nobody believed I would make it, certainly not all the way around the world, averaging 200 kilometers a day. I was not an athlete nor a cyclist. There was nothing to qualify me for such a huge undertaking. Nothing but willpower and the determination to finish no matter what. I had set out to prove that anything is possible, that we can do things that are far bigger than ourselves.
Wow. Did you believe that you would make it?
I didn't actually. In fact, I had left not really caring if I did make it. Because the point for me wasn't to make the record. That was just a nice addition. But I actually I wouldn't say it was a suicide mission, but I was so deeply depressed that I would be perfectly happy if something did happen to me and I just didn't come back. So I didn't actually think about making it to the end. And I think it was only about the halfway point that I was like, hold up, I'm already halfway. And it's like, ooh, all roads lead to home. And then from that point on, I started to think, I'm going to make it. And then it was like, nothing could stop me. I was going to make that finish line. So,
wow.
Yeah.
So it happened halfway round. So you left Italy in a state of depression and almost suicidal.
Yeah.
Would you recommend that as a way to start around the world cycle?
I think because I was not in a sane state of mind, I won't say sane, but I was not in I wasn't thinking straight. I think that probably assisted me in doing something so outrageous as just going around the world without really knowing what I was doing and not really caring or thinking about the consequences, because everyone would say, well, what are you going to do if this happens or this happens? And I was like, I don't care, I'll face it when it happens. So maybe it was that feeling that I had nothing to lose that enabled me to just kind of do it. And I think there was less thinking about consequences of the actions, and so I certainly think that helped a lot.
And that mentality, that taking these leaps of faith because there's a recklessness there, you don't really care. Where do you think that comes from?
The recklessness?
The recklessness, yeah.
I don't know if that's a character flaw or
or the opposite.
They say your greatest strength is also your greatest weakness, so
it depends.
Say that. You just have to know when to use it.
Now, is it not the case, though, that you believed growing up throughout your childhood that the world was going to end when you were 15? Have I read
12.
That? When you were 12?
Yeah. They were apocalyptic cult.
Oh.
So they thought that, Jesus would come back with trumpets and rapture us all up, just like a big mass hoovering, and just take up all the humans that were good.
Okay.
Which obviously was us. And and then the world would be destroyed, and then we would come back and rule the leftovers.
Right.
Yeah.
What was that?
There are still people who believe that.
Yeah. That still exists, the Children of God?
They do not know. After my first book, it was forced to disband. It just had so much exposure and negative publicity that they were just bleeding converts and money and all the rest, and they just couldn't survive anymore. So they're obliterated.
So that book, Not Without My Sister,
it served its purpose, which was to put out the truth of a generation of children who were born and raised in this environment. And I set out what I had planned to do, which was just to try and make it better for my brothers and sisters who were still in, so they could have a normal upbringing and go to school and have an education and get medical care and all the rest. And it ended up, serving a much greater purpose, and the whole group disbanded, and so all the children were able to just go out and lead normal lives. So for me, that was a very big victory.
Job done. Yeah.
Yeah, job done. Yeah.
And you're still a real advocate for vulnerable young people, aren't you? That's something that
very much for children's rights. Yeah.
Yeah. What's that sort of work that you do now?
I work with an organization which is set up by ex-kids who grew up in these extremist groups, and it's called Safe Passage Foundation. So all my writing generally is to support or to raise money and awareness for them. We have a scholarship fund for them to get education when they leave, and we have resources to help them get set up in the real world when they become functioning citizens, and then we have an emergency fund for if they're in a bad situation to help them get out.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that came out as a driver. Presumably that's another.
Yeah. So the World Cycle was also raising money for the foundation as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great. And do you think that was something that people were getting on board with while they were gifting you money in New Zealand when you ran out of money?
So I basically said any donations sent to my ride, I'm taking 50% will go to Safe Passage, and the other will go to the ride.
Okay.
To be able to continue. So a lot of raised a pretty good amount of money for that.
Yeah, 50% keep you in pizza and 50%.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, so much must have happened to you on that ride, and people here, if they haven't read your book, are just going to have to read your book in order to get their head around it fully. But can you detail for us, maybe if there was a moment that stood out for you where you were maybe at real risk of your life, or the opposite?
Yeah, there were a few moments that I felt in unsafe conditions, but I think one of them, which became quite a highlight to me for the people I met because of it, I was in New Zealand, and I had actually just discovered that I had no more money to continue the ride, so I was literally going to try and get to the next big city and possibly get a flight home because I had no more money. And while this event happened, people started sending donations in, and within like 2 days there was another 1,000 in my account, so I was able to keep going to Australia. But so what happened was I basically think my GPS died and I had no navigation, and I got myself lost, and the locals, either I didn't understand them or they didn't understand me, but they sent me in like all the wrong directions. Oh, no. So I got myself completely lost in the middle of I didn't know where I was. Got into this little town called Mangakino, which was sort of a derelict, half sort of mining town with a lot of like prefab kind of structures and interesting people, and booked into a hostel that had just been getting renovated, and they didn't have Wi-Fi or anything, so I couldn't get my routing or my map. And I ended up wandering down to the banks of this river, and there was this guy in a camper van, and he had a sort of a makeshift structure up, and he would make, he said he had a bar in the summer, and he would make kind of fast food, kind of pizzas and beer for people doing water sports on the lake or on the river. And he was trying out new pizza recipes, which basically meant a frozen patty, and then he was dumping frozen Asian vegetables on top and baking this, and it was just a comestible travesty. It was so bad. Don't try it at home. But anyway, from him, there was a British guy who was helping him eat this, I won't even call food.
The travesty.
And yeah, and he had his laptop, so he let me use it so I could plot the route. And basically my only option was I was going to go over this mountain kind of plateau called Desert Road, which the military used for training because it was such an abandoned,
Did you know this at the time, or is this afterwards you realised that that's what it was?
No, I was told, but I didn't have a choice. I had to cross this because that's where I was, right. Unless I went backwards on myself, which I wasn't going to do. So I ended up going off on Desert Road, and he was like, bring enough, water and all the rest because there's nothing out there. And I was like, yeah. And I thought, 80 kilometers, 100 kilometers, there's bound to be a petrol station or something. But no. I was climbing for 150 kilometers all day, and there was really nothing out there. And I got to the top of the plateau, and as night was falling, and I was so exhausted and shaking with fatigue and hunger before my ketogenic diet.
That wouldn't have happened now.
Yeah, if I had my oil with me, it wouldn't have happened. Yeah. But night fell, and with night came this incredible wind, and there was warning signs on the road for trucks, and they were the only things passing was these massive train trucks. And it was so strong, I think it was something like, it was over 100 kilometers an hour, that I couldn't actually pedal anymore, and I had to walk the bike, and the wind was literally picking up the bike I was like hanging on like that. Wow. And trying to walk along, and I wasn't dressed for the cold, and there was snow up there, and the temperatures just plummeted as night fell, and I had been like climbing all day, and I was sweating, and so I was starting to get really cold, and I as long as I could pedal, I could stay warm, but then walking, I started to freeze. Basically, I was getting hypothermia, and I was like, and I thought, oh my god, I'm gonna.
You didn't have a
tent
or
here.
Anything with you?
I didn't have. There was nowhere like I could have stopped. I couldn't have even set up a tent in that wind. It would have been impossible, and I didn't know where the next town was, and I just didn't know if I would get there, and I was pretty much panicking at that point. And then I saw a camper van had just pulled off the side of the road, and there was an old lady inside washing dishes, and I saw her in the window, and she just looked like a saving angel, and I was like pounded on the window. I was like, no! And then she like signaled to me to go around the front, and I came around the front, and the wind almost tore the door off the thing, and she went like flying out, and she was like, And she's like, what are you doing out here all alone? I was like, I think I'm getting hypothermic. And then her husband came out and they were like, we'll get you inside. So we all piled inside and like slammed the door shut, and I was like blue in the face. And so she was like, oh, we'll get you a hot cup of tea. And he was like, no, some bourbon will be better. I was like,
what did
so
you
I
choose?
sat across from him and we were drinking like shots of bourbon, and I very quickly warmed up, and then they fed me sausages and tea and all the rest. And I told them what I was doing, and they were like, you're mad. I'm like, it's not the first time I've heard that. But I said, so how far is the next town? I've got to get to it tonight. And they were like, no, it's impossible. You get there tonight. It's like, 40 miles on. And so I was in this position. I didn't know what to do. And they were going to drive 200 kilometers in the opposite direction to get to some friends they were going to stay the night with. And so I said, well, would you be able to drop me in the town, and I'll just have to cycle back here in the morning and start again from this point? And he was like, no, forget it. We'll just stop here for the night and you can sleep up on the top bunk there. And so they put me up that night, and the wind was rocking that thing all night, and they didn't sleep, the poor things. But I did. I slept like a dead. And they got me up at 6 a.m. and she cooked me some toast and coffee, and they got me going again. That was such a nice couple. And then they still follow me today on Facebook.
Oh, yeah, really?
Really nice couple. They said I'm their best dinner story. Really nice.
Do they know that you are theirs as well?
Yes, it's very mutual.
It's mutual.
It's mutual adoration for sure.
Wow, incredible story. And that really does exist, doesn't it? I think that kindness of people willing to help you.
Such good people. So many times people just kind of went out of their way to, when they didn't have to help me out. And seriously just got around the world on good people.
Were there, though, any experiences where you did run into difficulties, like where you didn't feel safe, that you didn't trust the people that were around you? Were there instances like that?
Only in India.
In India?
Yes, I'm afraid. I don't have a lot of good to say about India, but it was very intimidating. Every time I would stop, I would get mobbed by a big swarm of men, and they would kind of close in on me and start like jostling to me the bike, and they would get a bit aggressive. At one point the police had to come in and break up the mob with like batons, and it was really a bit, so I just tried to never stop in India. And then they would follow me on motorbikes and be like calling very crude things at me, and I started to get aggressive back. So I went between two tactics. One was to be aggressive, and I realized they're a bit cowardly. So if they thought you could beat them up, then they would drive away. So I tried to look as like tough and angry as possible, and then they would kind of like be scared and they'd go away, or I would start to act like a crazy person. They have a great respect for crazy people. So I would start to like do like crazy monkey stuff and shit like that, and then they would kind of like freeze, and I would just like roll my bike away through the crowd. so
are those two tactics that you would recommend?
Crazy monkey, I recommend. It works monkey. Every time. Yeah. In
just general life, not.
Yeah, because everyone's a little bit scared of someone who they think is not all there, because they're unpredictable, and we're scared of the unpredictable. So yeah, just act really unpredictable and people will back away.
But you didn't actually ever you weren't physically assaulted or
No, there was one instance in Thailand where I got a little beach hut one night, and it was really in the middle of nowhere. And generally, as a rule, I would try and stay in fairly populated areas and never allow myself to be put in a situation where I could potentially be at risk. I was more careful and cautious. But this time, I really wanted to be on a beach in Thailand, and I grew up in Thailand, so I have all kinds of childhood memories that were fairly happy of going to the beach. So I really wanted to get a little cabina, like a $2 cabina on the beach, and stay there the night. And a family pulled up and got the one next to me, and I went to bed quite early, and I woke up in the middle of the night, and there was 3 men on there had been some beach dogs around, and they chilled out with me all night, and I gave them some of my food. So they were all sleeping on my balcony of my cabina around my door. So they started to bark furiously during the night, and so I got up and was like, what's happening? And at the cabina next door there was this family seemed to be being I don't know if they were being robbed or what was happening, but there was 3 men quite aggressively pulling the father out, and there was shouting, and the women were crying, and so there was something happening, and I got really scared because I had experiences when I was living in Africa being held at gunpoint during the night and being robbed and all the rest. So it was just like this moment where my body went into shock and like kind of froze, and I suppose it was a form of PTSD, and I just couldn't control myself, like, and then I sort of forced myself to just calm down and just like mind over matter, and I had a very interesting realization that night, because I was like, what's the worst thing that could happen to me? And the worst thing that could happen to me was that I would die. And I thought, well, that's not the worst thing that could happen to me. I don't mind, like, because if I die, if there's life after death, then, you know, my next adventure awaits me. And if not, well, then I'll never know anyway. So, you know, I won't know I'm dead if there's nothing there. So, you know, what am I fussing about? So I went back to sleep.
Really? Well, that was still going on.
Yeah. And I woke up the next morning, and the dogs were all sleeping in front of my door like they'd been guarding me, and yeah, nothing happened. So
it's not until you're faced with that possibility of death that you find that
you find that complete calm. And once I calmed down, then it was like, you know, once I rationalized it, I was like, well, you know, I can be physically assaulted. That's not the worst thing that can happen to me. And what does everyone think is the worst thing? Death. There's nothing they can steal from me. I don't have anything apart from my bike, and so that's not the end of the world. So, you know.
It was broken anyway.
Yeah, the most you can lose is your life, and then if you're okay, you know, if you reach the point where you're not afraid of even that, and then you have no fear, then nothing terrifies you anymore, and then you're able to, you know, just go on.
What a point to reach.
It's a tough point to reach. We don't actually ever put ourselves in those positions very often.
Yeah.
But it's a great emancipation when you have nothing left that you feel scared to lose. Then you lose the fear of loss itself. Yeah. And that, I think, is the biggest human emancipation that you can experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Oh, interesting. Yeah, Dervla Murphy said something interesting about that as well. People say to her and to you, well, you must be very courageous. And yet if you don't feel fear, then you're not overcoming anything, and courage is overcoming something. So, yeah.
Interesting.
And I've got about 1 million questions, and I could hog you the whole time, or we could open it up to the floor.
Sure.
and get some other folk asking some questions. You up for that? Yeah. We have a mic. Fantastic. Has anyone got? Whoa. Okay. The gentleman in the blue shirt, please.
You talked in the book about it was an epiphany, but it was when you re-experienced the feelings you had in a dream about your father.
Yes.
Do you think has that affected how your life has gone on since then? Was that a very significant moment in how your life then continued after that?
Yeah, I think I've tried to. I think there were many moments of epiphany along that journey that kind of brought me to a new understanding of the way I saw the world and my place in the world and life in general. And I think that was one of them. But it kind of just brought back to me that no matter what happens in life, you can be in a place of complete calm, inner calm, so that anything that happens around you doesn't faze you, and you actually just can experience life on a much more present, just being present in that moment and experiencing it. And whether, I mean, I don't think that anything is such thing as bad or good experiences, because it's all an experience on the journey that we're in, that existence is. And so, yeah, that was quite a highlight. And I'd certainly going forward, I think I have found a sense of peace. And I maybe on that journey, I was looking for a way to deal or to find a way to get a bit of peace, because I was in such an emotional turmoil. And I think that I did manage by that point to start to find it. And going forward, have certainly found it. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, there's a gentleman just behind you.
Hi there. I just wonder how easy you find it now just to get up in the morning, have a coffee, perhaps go out for a walk. Do you not just find that completely mundane?
I had problems with that in the beginning, but you know what? More and more as time has gone and the more adventures I go on, I've started to find great pleasure in the really simple things, just enjoying that cup of coffee in the morning. And like I said, being present in that experience. So like a cup of coffee when you've had the worst coffee for the last 5 months becomes a great joy. And so sometimes just a comfortable bed. So I've just come back from following the transcontinental race as an organizer this year, not racing it. And I actually had to follow the race in a car. So I've been sleeping about as much as the racers, about 4 hours a night, and on the ground, in sleeping mats, on couches, on just random places, and not had a good night's sleep for a month. And so I finally got home, and my bed was just the most beautiful. I don't want to have sex with it. No, it was close. And then, my darling man was in the bed too, and that just made everything better. So the simple things like that, I find great happiness and satisfaction with. Yeah. So sometimes you do need to have an extreme opposite to appreciate the things that are taken for granted on a day-to-day level. So yeah, that does help actually.
But it is hard, that transition, when you first come back.
When you first come back, because you've had such peak experiences, that everything just becomes, I suppose the world comes crashing back in on you, and all of the day-to-day trivialities just seem so petty, and they just you just don't know how to deal anymore, because life becomes so simplified on the road. It's just eat, sleep, and ride, and that's it. And you put your focus into that, and so you do have to start to take care of. Then you have to worry about paying your bills and this and that, and life does come back. So it's hard to keep that that kind of simplicity. But I do try. I strive. It's a constant struggle.
The gentleman at the front in the. Sorry.
You famously beat Mark Bowen's record by 44 days. Just wondering what your take on his current record attempt is.
So you famously beat Mark Bowman's record by how many days?
Was it almost 2 months, more or less? He did
quite a long
195
time.
Days?
Yeah.
Oh, about 50 days, more or less? I don't know. I think it was a bigger deal for you guys here than it was for me. I think they're two very different things. So riding supported and unsupported already to me is a different thing, because you don't have the same experiences, and you don't have the possibility of having the kind of experiences you do when you're on an adventure on your own without all of that support and money and backing. So you might not encounter the same people or the same places that you would otherwise. So it's really about whether you're going on an adventure for yourself or whether you're doing it as a job to make money. And I think that's the main difference between the two. I think anyone with that much backing could probably do the same thing, with that much training, that much resources, but not everyone's that lucky. But what I want to show is that you can also go on a similar adventure, but you don't need all of that behind you. You can just go out and do it anyway. And I think that's maybe the difference.
With 8 months of training and a decathlon bike.
Yeah, if I could do it, anyone can do it. Yeah.
One more just behind.
Juliana, I just wanted to know what's the next big adventure. Not dot following in a car. That's not fun.
No, it's not fun. Well, I'm planning a expedition through Patagonia by bike at the end of the year. And I'm really excited. So I've got a bucket list of all the rides I still want to do. And South America has been really high, particularly Patagonia, going from the edge of Peru down through Chile, and then I want to hit Bolivia salt flats, and then I want to go down through Argentina. So I'm going to probably do that for 3 to 4 weeks at the end of the year, over the new year, and that's hit that from my bucket list. Yeah.
Cool. Some more questions. Yeah, we'll move on to the next. Thank you.
Is there ever the temptation to stay longer?
To stay longer, in one place as I go through?
Just said all the things you're going to do, in only those few weeks.
Yeah. No, for sure. Particularly when you're having a really good time somewhere, you just think, oh my God, I could stay here a week. And then you always think, I've got to come back. And sometimes you get to, and many times you don't. But I have been lucky that lots of places that I was at the World Cycle, I've revisited either through cycling adventures alone or through many of the races I've done. So now I've crossed all the continents again 2 or 3 times. So I've done like loads of I've hit the same places and actually been able to see some of the same people too. So I have managed to come back to a lot of the places, and I have many more that I still have to go back to. They've been added to the list. It's ever growing list. It's never going to end. But yeah, it would be interesting to do it as a slow ride and take your time and have fun. And I think that that's definitely a nice way to do it. And I am almost jealous of the cyclists who have done it that way. Yeah.
Takes a very different mindset, doesn't it?
Yeah,
I think.
I think you think more long term,
Yeah.
And just sort of settle into it. And I think to relax like that and have a journey by bike without any time constraints is wonderful. And I appreciate it more and more. The more I've done races, the more I want to I want to be on a bike for pleasure, not with a time limit. Yeah.
But you get something from the racing.
You get something from both, because being in a race pushes you or puts you in a position where you're forced to push yourself harder than you otherwise would, and you learn a lot about yourself when you're put into that kind of extreme situation where your mind and your body are all being pushed to their absolute limit, and when you think you can't go further, and then you go further, and it's an amazingly, it's really hard to explain that feeling, but it becomes very addicting once you reach this peak that you didn't know you could achieve that, and you achieve it, and it's incredible. And you take that into everyday life, because then you feel so strong. You feel like, if I did that, I can do anything. What else can I do? So it's 2 extremely different things, but I think both are very important and have their place for different reasons. Yeah.
Okay. There's a gentleman at the front here.
Hello, Juliana. Thank you very much for your talk. I want to know what that bike is doing there, and whether you arrived here, and have you got a decent bike now?
This gorgeous beast is not mine. It's Lee's.
Yeah.
But we put it there for decorative reasons.
But you're decorative enough.
Oh, I like you. Smooth. But so you can sort of get an idea of the kind of kit we carry on these races and long rides. So you would think we don't do all the big saddlebags and packs. They really are just very aerodynamic and minimalist, and you only carry like your absolute essentials. So you'll have just like a rain jacket and maybe a change of cycle shorts and some tools to fix your bike, and maybe a couple spare parts, and that's it. And so you more or less ride that. There's also one that could fit under the seat, like looks a bit like a abdomen of an insect, and it just attaches directly under, so you don't need to have the rack or anything like that. So everything's very lightweight and compact. And that's more or less how they...
And what weight, what bicycle have you got now? Or is it a good quality?
I've got a few, and then I find that different rides and races are need different things. So depending on what the ride or the race will be, I will have a bike accordingly. I don't have that many. I've got 3 bikes, but like for example, I want to get a mountain bike now because I would like to do a mountain bike expedition or race. So then I have to, source money for that. But the ones nowadays that we race with are quite, they're a bit hybrid, so they look a bit like a road bike, but they've got the mountain bike disc brakes. And I use mountain bike pedals as well, because then I can walk around with the shoes everywhere, so I don't need to bring a spare change of shoes or anything like that. And then it will depend, the handlebars can vary, but they tend to be a little bit less bulky than mountain bikes and a little bit faster on racing. And then I've got a road bike. So. But the really strong one that I loved, that I won the Trans Am with, was a Canyon. And it wasn't the lightest of bikes, but it was really tough. And it had a couple crashes that it survived, so it was a really good bike for that reason. But yeah, they keep coming out with new and interesting bikes for these kind of randonnées and distance cycling, and they're starting to change a lot. And bikes are getting more and more high tech and like nothing that I recognized 6 years ago.
I just wondered, what elevation did you make in height?
What elevation did you get up to on her world tour?
How tall am I?
No, what height did you ride to?
Did you climb?
Oh, the highest elevation I hit? I would have to say, let me think. I went over the Rockies. I went over the Alps. I don't think I went higher than 2,500 meters. I think that would be
very wise. It gets a bit hearty after that. There's another question just at the back there. Yeah. Button relay race at the back.
So, Juliana, you were saying that before you set out to set the world record, no woman had done it before. No woman has done it since either. You're still the record holder. I know quite a few women have attempted it or wanted to do it and then not done it for some reason. So it's now, 6 years? So well done. But do you have any idea why nobody has attempted or broken the record since yours?
I don't know. Yeah, it's a good question. I know the woman who tried it, they were all going to do it supported, mostly. And I think, I don't know if women are just don't have the same confidence, or they're not sure they can, or they don't feel experienced enough. I don't know what keeps women from kind of taking off on these bigger adventures. Or maybe it's just because women tend to maybe have, families and, take on the concerns of, have children and all the rest. And so there's maybe a very few who would be able to do it, who'd be able to go off and do it. And most women who get into cycling, professional cycling, probably go off and join teams or get into professional racing. And so maybe they're not suited to the other. So I don't know, and it could also be financial reasons that women have more difficulty getting backing or getting support in any way. Like I still have a hard time. I still don't have a sponsor, and it's been really hard to find sponsors for my racing. So I don't know. Yeah, it's a good question.
Riding now, who would be able to set a new record? Do you think?
Oh yeah, there's loads. You could, for instance. Lee could. I could.
That sounds like a race.
Ooh. A race around the world with women would be really interesting.
Wouldn't it?
There's so now in the last in the first transcontinental race, which was in 2013, I was the only woman of the racers, and now in the transcontinental race this year there was 30. So it's growing massively for women in popularity, and I think that the more that they realize they can do it, because the whole world of ultra racing is still very new, first of all, but it's particularly new to women, and it does take a lot of time to be able to do it, so to train and to actually race. So not that many women have that amount of time to spend doing things like that, but it's growing anyway ridiculously fast, and within that field of women coming in, there's gonna be in future loads, and there already are loads who could take it on, and for sure there will be in future ones who do take it on. I'm absolutely certain. Can't wait.
It's an interesting time, I think, for women in sport.
Yeah.
I think we've got time for one more question. Yeah.
Hi. You talked a bit about the kind of the focus and the mindset you get into when you're riding, which was kind of like eat, sleep, ride.
Yeah.
I think it's astounding that you've been able to create a book, and I'm curious to know about the process of logging memory when you're in that state, and then I guess how you went about writing the book afterwards.
Yeah. Well, I was lucky because the Guinness World Record rules said I had to carry a logbook and enter a log every single day of anything that happened to me, and signatures of people I met along the way, the time, the date, and all of that, where I stayed the night, where I stopped the night, and all. So I had a very detailed record of the ride that in front of me, and I think I used that as a way I could write down thoughts as well that I had, because you spend so much time in your head, which is a great way to work out your mental process or fight your demons, I suppose. But so I when I went back to write the book, I pretty much, and it is written in a diary format because it is just taken directly from the logbook. So most of the, not most of it, but a lot of the thoughts or the kind of moments of epiphany that I had on the road were written from the diary and just taken directly from the diary and put into the book. So it is very much, when you read it, a very it's short, it's concise, because I wanted the reader to have it exactly as I kind of felt it at the end of the day, logging it down and my experience of that day. So it's not like every single thing that happened, and it's not a travelogue. It really is just what I felt, what I ate, what I experienced, and what I saw, who I met along the way. And so it goes very fast that way, much as my days flew by. And so it was, I guess, a way of keeping track of those kind of inner monologues as well, which is really great. I'm glad I was forced to do it. Yeah.
Juliana, we could ask you questions all afternoon, but we have to wrap it up
okay.
because you're only in Scotland for another 24 hours, and I feel personally responsible for ensuring you drink whiskey and eat oysters.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's what our afternoon, we need to wrap up and get on and do that. But
that's what I came to Edinburgh for.
This is just an aside. But before we do that, Juliana will be signing her book, This Road I Ride, for those of you that maybe have your own copy, or if you want to buy a copy, you can do that at the signing tent just out of these doors 50 yards down on the left-hand side. So Juliana will be in there.
Yes.
We'll bring you an oyster and a whiskey until she'll stay until she's signed everybody's books. Thank you all so much for coming, and thank you to the Edinburgh Book Festival for putting on this incredible series of events, not just this one, although this actually was an excellent one.
It's a really nice vibe here.
It's nice, isn't it? Yeah.
Really like it.
But for an enormous thank you to Juliana Buhring.
No, thank you for being here. Thank you so much.
We saw Juliana Buhring, who's a round the world cyclist, and I've seen 3 events so far, and they're all cycling related, but I came to this one because my daughter and I read the book a few months ago, and she was very engaging and it was really enjoyable.
Absolutely fantastic story, partly of her life, but of what she did in this remarkable round the world cycle. Absolutely tremendous. It's great. Well, I cycle myself, and I also like reading these sort of books in any case, so it's a combination of the two, interested in the subject and this, the kind of documentary and self-revelation that involves. Yeah, it's very good.
It was really inspiring to hear how she went from not cycling at all to going to be the fastest woman to cycle in the world. It was just amazing.
She started talking about when she grew up in the Philippines in it was the religious cult that she was in, and it was just amazing to hear that she'd overcome so much adversity and something so amazing had come out of that.
We really like coming to the book festival as a family, and it was just something really different and really unusual, and just to hear about someone do something so incredible, we just thought it would be really cool.
Oh, it's buzzing. It is completely buzzing. I love how so many people are about, and it's not too busy, but there's a certain buzz about it. It's really nice.
It's just the city comes alive. It's just incredible, and to have so many people who all like books and like interesting things, it's really magical. It's really cool.
There seems to be something for everyone. So whole families can come in, and you never really left wanting. It's really good.
I remember coming and seeing workshops where you got to make a ballet outfit, all the way up to seeing my favourite authors and meeting them and queuing for hours to get the book signed, and then coming to something like this where it's like, oh, you're not that much different from me, and you've done this amazing thing, and it's really inspiring and makes you think about what you could do. We did just meet Juliana.
She asked if I cycled, and I was so in awe. I was like, no, but it was wonderful, and but no, she was lovely. She's so lovely.
Really lovely.
What I know about cycling you could write in a stamp, but she's the most phenomenal lady, and we've obviously just bought her book, and it was really good. It was in the Bosco Theatre, and it was brilliant. It was really good.
Yeah, she was very inspiring, and I think we all thought, how on earth did she manage to cycle so far each day? And she did it with no training to start out, very little training, and just went off and did it. And I think we were all
support.
No support. And the thing about the sponsorship we found was a bit unfair for her. After doing all that, she's still finding it difficult to get sponsorship, which seemed very unfair, didn't it?
We're into girl power, obviously, because we're here. The book festival introduces you to so many different things. It's not just like books, it's like people, it's like their lives. So it's amazing, and it's sunny. What more can you say? Edinburgh, lovely.